Joe is back with us. Oh my gosh, is it the red pill? Is it the blue pill? Are we in something right now? Let's talk The Matrix. Hey guys, it is Dan here, and Joe is back with us again. 2 brand new movie reviews in the same week.
Yeah.
And then an old movie review too, because we did West Side Story and Fiddler on the Roof
for
Dan's big movie for the anniversary. But we're here to talk today about The Matrix Resurrections.
AKA
is that right? Yeah.
Matrix 4, basically.
This is Matrix 4.
It's Matrix 4.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
They're not pretending like it's a reboot,
not,
and you know that makes me angry when they do that.
In fact, they lean into
Scream,
it quite a bit.
like the new Scream is called Scream, but it's really it's a sequel.
But if they
It's
call
not a reboot. It's the same cast. It's Scream 5.
Would you prefer something like Scream Resurrections or a Scream 5? You don't like the numbers.
Well, the numbers are okay, but I do like Resurrections or like
they were Awakening.
I don't know. I kind of do like that.
Get more creative.
Yeah, well, you said Halloween started that whole trend when they brought back Halloween.
I think so.
Just called it that. And Candyman, same thing, but whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about. It is, but Matrix Resurrections is the new film.
Yes.
You could see it in theaters.
Or
which I would actually kind of recommend, because I watched it on HBO Max. I feel like I didn't get the full scope of everything, the full Matrix experience. I've only really seen one of them in the theaters, which was the third one.
Oh.
That was a mistake.
Well, that's an interesting
choice. Because when the first one came out, I was in college, so we didn't have super easy access to a theater. So I saw that on video, and then the second one, I'm still not positive I saw the second one all the way through, but I think I did. But that would have been on video too. So have you ever seen Before Today? Because you saw the new one in theaters, which I think we can admit is probably the way to see it.
I think so.
But did you see any of the other ones in theaters?
I have a hard time remembering, but I want to say I think I either saw the second or third one in theaters.
Okay.
But I can't remember which.
The third one was huge because there was so much buildup from the first two movies. Yeah. I think it had one of the biggest R-rated opening weekends ever.
That doesn't surprise
third one,
me,
yeah.
With all the violence and stuff. I was thinking about it earlier, actually. I was a little young, I think, to see The Matrix in theaters, or we missed it. But I remember my family and I gathered to watch it because it had gained such a reputation. We actually saw the first one on its first, national or international TV release on whatever station it was. So
sure.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I remember that was
CBS Sunday Night at the Movies or whatever it was.
It was a big deal. Matrix, you can see it.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Okay.
I distinctly remember
that.
It was good.
Well, anyway, so you can see it in theaters, or it is available on HBO Max, and this is the last one now of those Warner Brothers movies that are doing the simultaneous release. They did it for the whole year. Because of COVID last year, it angered many of their big stars and directors. Nolan famously said, well, I'm not making movies with you anymore. And his next movie, I think, is now Paramount. But this will be the last one. And many of these, I think, were made more for the theater. Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
A different type of movie, but In the Heights, which was a great lavish musical. Eye-popping colors and all of that. But this one I think is probably best suited for the screen. But we're going to talk about the very brief synopsis because we could maybe do spoilers later on if we want.
Probably later.
But we'll do a little no spoiler here. But basically, many of the people returned from the original.
Yes.
Keanu Reeves is back. Carrie-Anne Moss is back. Fishburne is not back, which we'll talk briefly about. And we do see sort of some archival footage of that.
And is it Jada Pinkett Smith?
Jada Pinkett Smith. She wasn't in the original, though, or was she?
She was in 2 and 3.
Oh, 2 and 3, okay. So anyway, so the basic plot here is that we're 60 years now after the events of the original film, or I guess after the third film, Revolutions.
Yes.
And Neo, of course, Keanu Reeves is back, is living basically his sort of ordinary life under the original Thomas Anderson identity.
Yes.
Right. And they're in San Fran. And then a new version of Morpheus, who is played here by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who we've seen in a few different things. He offers him the red pill and once again opens his mind to the world of the Matrix. So that's really all we'll say. And I want to warn everybody, if you don't like spoilers, don't read the descriptions of the characters on Wiki.
Really?
Because I did, because I was wondering who a couple of the people were,
Mm-hmm.
and it not only says like, you know, so and so plays this,
Mm-hmm.
it like
Explains.
it gives like a 2 or 3 sentence description for
why
each
it's that way?
person. And I sure was like, okay, well now I know that major plot point.
No.
And yeah, they do that sometimes. It's very annoying.
Watch it with your people.
But
Watch
some of the other people in this movie we have not mentioned that are new to the series, Neil Patrick Harris, who plays the therapist,
the analyst.
the analyst, Jonathan Groff, who you may know from Hamilton. He plays Smith here.
Oh, nice.
And then Priyanka Chopra plays Sati, who is an exile program, and then Jada Pinkett Smith, you mentioned.
Who plays Bugs?
Bugs is Jessica Henwick, who I'm not super familiar with.
I don't know if I've seen her before.
Let's see if we know anything from her.
I liked her.
Oh, she's a Marvel. She was in Luke Cage, Defenders, and she was in The Force Awakens as a minor role, and you may know her from Game of Thrones for a couple seasons. So she's done a few different things. Nothing really that I watched. So I was unfamiliar with this gal.
Yeah, me too. Really.
And they the gentleman I mentioned, Mateen II, he was in was it When They See Us? Oh no, the Chicago 7. Aaron Sorkin again. But he was in one of the Black Mirror episodes, and he was Cal in The Watchmen, the HBO Watchmen.
Okay.
So we've seen him in a few things. Oh, and he was Aquaman. He did something in that.
Oh, he's Black Manta.
David Kane, the Black Manta. Okay,
nice.
so
Okay. Yeah, I like
so we've seen him in many things, and he sort of is taking over for the Morpheus role. All right, so like we did, I guess, with the Kingsman, let's talk briefly about our sort of. We talked about when we saw the original movies, but what are the thoughts? For me, I've only seen all of these movies once, which is odd because in my review, I'm sort of going to talk about. How I feel like these movies do almost demand multiple watches to really, get the full effect. And
They're thinkers.
They are absolutely thinkers. And I don't know, for some reason, once I saw the cool visuals and everything, I never felt the need to rewatch these movies. But I know people love them.
I think that's an honest thing. 'Cause I think that
a
lot of people, especially with the sequels, because they were a little different.
Yeah.
You got that maybe you would be kind of driven away from it initially.
Yeah, and that first one was so huge.
So
And by the time I saw it, it was certainly talked about almost to death. And I did think it lived up to the hype and everything. Visually, it was obviously a stunner and a true game changer.
Sure.
Almost in the same vein as, dare I say it, but like a Star Wars. In terms of effects, I think The Matrix sort of reset what action movies could do and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Star Wars did 20 years earlier. But and then that second movie, I don't even know if I saw the whole thing. I barely remember it. But I remembered being underwhelmed after the first one, and then the third one I just thought was really horrible. I bet, knowing you though, because they are very think heavy pieces, good sci-fi, I bet you probably actually appreciate each one for its own kind of value.
Yes, I was actually thinking too before we reviewed this of how The Matrix had this period where, of course, it was really big, and then I feel like some people kind of have retracted it and wrote it off for a while. But really thinking about it historically, you're right. I think from just an action movie standpoint and sci-fi, that balance of kind of being cerebral, but also the combining of the string work with martial arts, but also some pretty good CGI that still really holds up.
Actually,
so for special effects and the 360 camera thing,
you're
right. I think The Matrix is a really influential film. And I remember how in the years afterwards, everyone, Underworld and everyone,
Wanted,
the cloaks and the slow-mo, bullet time. I mean,
everybody was doing it.
So I think the Matrix, the first one, is really solid.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good movie, but I think it's also a fun popcorn movie at the same time.
Yeah.
I think it has it's smart but also accessible, which not a lot of big action movies are. Which is cool.
Totally agree with that. Most of them are accessible, like the Fast movies and Jurassic. But except for really that first Jurassic, they aren't really thinkers.
They don't leave you with a message. They aren't, and that's fine. But The Matrix, I think, kind of separates itself.
Well, and it's one of the reasons people cite 99 as
it's a great year.
One of the huge, that and The Sixth Sense really did completely sort of change a couple of different genres.
But as far as the sequels go, though, yes, you're right. I think that the tough thing about the Matrix sequels, which is interesting, they lead into with this one, is that they're very divisive, the second and third one, because the first one's such a standalone movie, it didn't necessarily need sequels.
Right.
But if you're going to do it, you have to take the story a direction and lean into it a certain way. And some people aren't going to like that.
Yeah.
I do think it gets a little convoluted with some of its own rules, and it has a different thematic focus. But honestly...
3, I felt like, really kept breaking its own rules, from what I remember.
It had some issues. But I do like that they expand the world. And honestly, in terms of action and stylistic things...
You still really liked it.
The second one, not the big Agent Smith fight, but when he fights a lot of the Merovingian henchmen who make an appearance in this movie.
Yeah.
That's my favorite fight scene.
Okay.
And in the third one, I just really I love the scene with the train when Neo's kind of in this limbo and meets a character who is in this movie.
Right,
so, I do agree the second and third are not as good, certainly, but I think there are things about them I still really like.
Okay.
Basically.
And I sort of figured that would be kind of where your mind is with it. I mean, I wasn't grading movies at the time, but if I had to say, I think that first Matrix is really probably
pretty up there.
an A, for effects alone, really. But like you said, it's also a pretty fun popcorn movie.
Sure.
And for somebody who, like myself, who's a little bit... I don't know, lesser on the I love a dumb action movie kind of scale.
I don't think you're really that person.
I mean, I
like an action movie that make you think, I'd imagine.
But that's what I mean. I like an action movie that makes you think. So, like a Total Recall or something like that. That has some dumb things too. But that's same kind of concept.
Yeah.
And then the second one has to be in the C range or something because I don't even remember it. And then that third one is definitely a negative. It's probably a C- or a D+ or something.
Okay.
But so we come to this one.
Finally.
And I know, right? This one is interesting in many ways.
That's true.
And the first thing I want to mention is, because I know you don't necessarily do the background stuff on who's in it or whatever. But
I'm very happy. I went in completely blind. No Rotten.
But after I watched... No, I didn't see the Rotten. But after I watched it today, I did look up a couple of things.
Okay.
And so the director here is Lana Wachowski.
It's one of the
which is one of the siblings. But this is, I believe, the first one that just one of them did.
I think you're right.
The other two were both of them.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Do you know why the other one didn't?
I actually don't. But what I did read about this one was even Lana only seemed to be sort of partially in it because they started filming about a month before all the shutdowns in 2020.
Okay.
And in that time, she was like, you know what? I'm not even sure. Should we finish this movie? Just leave this movie as it is and never put it out? And it was the actors who said, no, let's finish what we started, and eventually things will get back to normal. We can film it and put it out. Okay. So she was about to shelve the movie entirely.
So the heart wasn't really that.
So which I thought was odd. Because I'm sure there's
remember there's a line. There are a number of lines in the movie which suggest pretty obviously behind. If we don't make a fourth one,
that's the next thing I was going to say.
So it's pretty clear.
That's the next thing I was going to say in terms of being different from the other movies. This one has an interesting tongue-in-cheek meta commentary about
film franchises,
video game franchises, pop culture franchises,
video games,
technology, fourth entries in a series 20 years after the fact,
narrative,
all of that stuff. All of that stuff is very present for the first
time
half. Well, I was going to say for the first half hour of the movie.
Yeah,
it's like boom, boom, boom,
every because
effing comment.
The premise is Neo in this one,
a video game designer, but he designed a game called The Matrix,
the game which is basically the Matrix movies, and so they're talking about making a fourth game, and we got to break the mold, but we should do this or just everybody just wants bull, and it was so much of that.
It was weird to me.
It was a little weird, but I kind of liked. I laughed a couple times, but I will admit
it was kind of funny.
Not what I was expecting.
Well,
initially.
No, that is true. But here's the thing I want to say about this.
Tell me.
So we talked, of course, the other day about Kingsman. The review of the Kingsman is up right now. Kingsman 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this about Matrix 4.
Oh, no.
This is a consistent film.
It is pretty consistent.
This knows what it is doing,
Mm-hmm.
knows what it wants to do, and I think accomplishes those goals. How effective they are, I think, are open for debate. I think those scenes we were just referring to with all the fourth wall breaking, I think
You may not like
be
it.
divisive to some people.
Some people may not like
For
it.
me, I think it was a little too much with it. We get it.
Sometimes.
You know,
Sometimes.
they really went all in on some of those jokes.
Especially with the end credit scene.
With the end credit scene,
It was like, stop.
I didn't need to see that. You don't have to wait for the end credit scene.
It was more of that, basically.
But yeah, it was just more of the fourth wall. But well, not really fourth wall breaking. We shouldn't say
But
that.
leaning into that
but the
same-
meta sort of humor
Another
of
yeah.
you know,
how do we make it
yeah,
relevant?
right,
You know, with
right.
the kids and
that. To be honest, that stuff to me is very played out. Because there's so many reboots and spin-offs now
do that.
that they all do it.
Yeah.
Because they're all like, oh, it was so funny when they did it 15 years ago and whatever
Deadpool
movie was the
makes
first one to do it.
references or whatever.
21 Jump Street I remember was
that.
really heavy on that, and that was almost 10 years ago
Heck,
now.
I
So
mean,
it's like
even back in the day, your Brady Bunch movie does some of that.
Brady Bunch movie, a lot of that sort of winking and nodding at the camera.
Yeah, that's not really
The
new.
Muppets always do it. So but for
I appreciate
me,
it, though.
Well, I thought it was a little too much.
Maybe a little.
Just because we got it. The movie's 2.5 hours long. We don't need a 15-minute part of this.
Yeah.
Neo doesn't even show up for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I paused the movie as
well,
soon as he showed up, and
okay.
it was like 14 minutes and 57 seconds or something.
This, once again, I find myself a little conflicted, but I'll give you a mini summary.
Yeah.
The first, 15 minutes of the movie before Neo shows up, it's not really a spoiler here, they basically just completely reshoot the opening scene with the first movie.
Right.
But they have somebody kind of watching it, giving a play-by-play, and like, why is this different? And I was like, on one hand, I was about to be like, why are we just doing the same thing again? But there is a different angle to it, so I'm like,
But I think I think all of that stuff goes on a little too long.
yeah.
I don't think this movie quite needed to be
2.5.
the full 2.5. You could have given it a 2:10. You could have trimmed up about 20 minutes
I'm glad
from various scenes.
because I was like this. I was feeling the line flow like, okay, let's just save the
Like
day
I didn't
already.
think any one particular plot point dragged or anything, but
All
just
the
you could have
scenes,
trimmed each scene by about 30 seconds.
because they literally just
and
do
not
the
lost
first
a
scene
lot.
of the first Matrix
Yeah.
movie all over again.
So once it gets going, then I'm like, okay, now I'm getting in on this.
Gets
Now
better,
they're
yeah.
doing all the Matrix-y things, and I will admit that there are a few parts of the effects that I mean, it's not. Well, it is kind of a negative, but I don't think
Matrix is groundbreaking.
it was. Yeah. Here's the problem. I guess the problem is when
20
you
years
have
later.
such a groundbreaking masterpiece, let's say,
Yep.
in its genre,
Mhm.
it's almost impossible to live up to it.
Sure.
Especially when, because it was so groundbreaking, I'm not sure that a lot of the technology that they were doing
Proved that much.
has even improved that much. Like you could say, okay, Star Wars in the 70s, well, the effects by the 99 Phantom Menace and then the newer ones, I mean, it's leaps and bounds because of the style that they're doing.
Yeah.
But here, there's parts where Neil Patrick Harris's character, for example, not to reveal much, but goes into sort of like a slow motion sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't think
I thought it was cool.
it was cool, and I liked the scene.
Sure.
I liked the way it was written.
Sure.
But to me, the effects were not eye popping.
Well, it was just slow motion.
It was just slow motion.
Yeah.
And so I think that is sort of a hurdle of this movie, that it's almost impossible to break that much new ground twice.
To use another
you know?
example of another movie we brought up earlier for special effects and being great, Jurassic Park, even though we've had newer movies that are better, nothing's really topped that first one.
It's really
because
true.
of that perfect blend.
Yeah.
So it's hard to top it.
Right. Even though we're now 30 years on with the effects.
Because even more CGI actually doesn't look that realistic.
Many times it does not.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
though I will say one thing about this one though in terms of the effects.
Yeah.
One thing I was happy about was I think of all the Matrix movies, this one has the most practical effects. A lot of like stunt work,
That's
fighting,
probably true.
which I kind of appreciate.
Yeah, that's probably
like
true.
A less is more approach for some of that stuff.
Well, let me tell you something else I appreciated,
Okay.
and
The robots.
I can't imagine this is something you picked up on.
Okay.
The robots were very cool, and I did like them. But I think this is probably, and I'm sure it's due to Lana Wachowski, being a trans person. But this is, to me, by far the queerest action movie I've ever seen.
Do you mean that in terms of cast?
I mean
or
it
style?
in every sense of the word.
Because I will admit, just before you go on,
yeah,
I was kind of thinking. I didn't.
Is that something that you sort of thought about?
I picked up on a vibe, and I'm like, I don't think it's in my face. Like,
yeah.
it's not like
no, and I don't mean
but,
at all that it's like, in your face about it.
Particularly, and to be fair, it's because I think the Matrix has. Well, one thing I was thinking of, I love how they kept the look of everybody that's on the main Bugs' crew. They're all in their leather and all their and I'm just thinking.
Yes.
I'm just thinking, wow, they all look like they're about to go to a Nine Inch Nails
concert,
like
a gay bar,
with
like
all the
leather bar.
I'm like, I don't know if that was just. I don't know if it was homosexuals that I was picking up, but
well, okay, but then the reason I actually started thinking about it was because of Neil Patrick Harris,
yes,
and Jonathan Groff, who plays the new Smith, who is also an out gay man. I just thought, boy, you don't ever see
that many
gay people in an action movie. You just don't.
Yeah,
certainly not one geared towards men. I mean, sometimes you might see. Some lesbians or whatever in a hardcore like female action movie, but here again, Carrie-Anne Moss, okay, she's not a lesbian, she is straight, but she was the first lesbian Marvel character in Jessica Jones, so it's like she's got a gay following. Christina Ricci, who's in this movie, has a huge gay following.
Wait, who was she in this? Did I miss her?
Yeah, she was.
Who was she in this?
I'll tell you, she was only in like 2 scenes.
What? Whoa.
The Forehead, your favorite.
Wait, I missed her. Wow.
I guess so.
Huh. Christina Ricci.
I don't know who she plays, but yeah, she's in it.
Huh,
right there. So yeah, she was in it. Jada Pinkett Smith, obviously has very open sexual dialogue on her TV show, the Red Table Talk. So like, there's all these like queer people and queer icons in this action movie, which you just never see. The closest I can think of is Michelle Rodriguez in the Fast movies.
Yeah, but you know what? One thing I appreciate is, and maybe this is the great thing, is it you don't draw attention to it like, they're not making a point.
It's not something I even thought about until closer to the end of the movie.
Which is good.
Which is great.
Because like
it's not in your face at all, and I think that's awesome.
They're in the story, and they just happen to be...
It takes place in San Francisco. I mean, like, it's very gay.
But now we add it to the list. See?
But yes, it's in the list. It's on my list of gay movies now.
It's kind of cool.
But yeah, like you said, there's no... we're checking boxes here. Like,
no,
it's not
just there happened to be.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's because Lana is a trans person, but so she was thinking about that, but it's certainly not in your face. So I liked that about it. I think Carrie-Anne Moss did a great job here.
Sure. I've been watching Jessica Jones, by the way. She is good in that.
Is she? Okay, that's one of the
Netflix.
That's one of the few Netflix Marvel shows that I really want to see because I love Kristen Ritter.
Yeah, you'd like it.
So I think I would like that one.
Good show.
All right, so let's see. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we start moving towards our grades?
I mean, maybe some of this stuff is pretty obvious for me, but some positives for me. I liked Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, I mean, Reeves was fine.
He was Neo. He was fine.
Yeah, he was Neo.
I liked.
He was also a little bit of John Wick and all the other characters he always does.
He's fine. I really liked Hamilton as the new.
Yeah, Jonathan Groff I thought was fantastic.
He was a good villain.
I've only really ever seen him in Hamilton.
It's my first time seeing him,
I didn't know the range. He plays the silly part of Hamilton. He's like the comic relief character. So when I saw him in this, I was like,
Anderson.
I was really kind of shocked.
I liked him.
I thought he was I thought he did a great job.
He was doing
Neil Patrick, of course.
Yeah, and I was gonna say Neil Patrick Harris.
We've seen him do many different kinds of roles.
I loved his role in this. He was one of my favorite parts of the movie. Yeah, I agree. I think tonally it's better. It definitely has a better.
Pinkett Smith's makeup
was good makeup, though. All right, that is one of my negatives of the movie.
Yeah, it's a little.
The scenes where it's with her just talking about the other movies, and I'm like, we're just focusing on her as the linchpin. I thought those were a little bit
Okay.
long.
I agree.
Makeup was fine, but I don't know. She didn't have the strongest scenes.
Speaking of, though, her going over the other movies.
Oh, yeah, all the scenes.
Is
there too much
There's
reliance?
too much of the other movies in here.
You know what? I'll tell you
It
what.
doesn't stand at all on its own. Although, if you've never seen a Matrix movie, you could, because they give you, they feed it to you.
Sure.
You
It could be an intro.
It could stand alone
and that's
as well,
one
I
of
guess.
those stylistic things, like with the
Yeah.
meta stuff. Maybe a little too much, but for the most part, I liked it. I liked when they'd have the flashbacks in the movies. I just wish that every time they did that, it was like a second. Like a splash.
Yeah, we don't need it. We don't need it that long.
Like the scene where they go and literally watch the first movie. Like, he's like, oh,
Yes.
I did kind of like when Morpheus is like, one thing or the other, Alice in Wonderland, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. I'm a little torn on that, but I agree. I think all that stuff was just a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
But on the whole, I thought it was pretty fun. I liked the motorcycle chase.
Yeah, there's a couple of really, really obviously good action sequences.
I like that I like the
fact
fact
training
that,
montage, or the training scene was good with him.
And I agree with your point that you can't really top the effects, but I think that the way they were trying to go with the fights and stuff a different stylistic way.
Yeah.
Which I liked.
Which I think probably makes the most sense. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty decent choice.
Mm-hmm.
It was because it was when they went into the more effects heavy scenes that I noticed.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this looks kind of the same as, which it expresses how groundbreaking that first one was. But in 22 years later, if there necessarily isn't a lot of effects things to say, okay, maybe they could have leaned even more into the regular action sequences.
So yeah, I guess
I'm a little torn.
Yeah, I'm a little torn too on some things. I like the fact that it sort of added on to all the other movies. It didn't just ignore the other two that are popular. It included them.
Yeah,
which I admire.
That's for sure.
Not to get spoiled.
Major plot points from the third one are included in this movie for sure.
And they add, you have to know. And they add an extra layer of what goes on with the machines and why Neo's back, which I actually liked. And I thought it was interesting, and they add another level there. So I think that this did a good job of being a good sequel, in that, it does build off the mythos, but it did try to be its own thing. I'm glad it wasn't just trying to be like an exact recreation.
I agree to that to a point, but I don't think that it was its own thing very much. I think it relies way too heavily on the other movies.
Stylistically, I think it was.
Oh, okay. Yes, that I agree with. Yep.
Stylistically.
All right. So for grades, I went first on Kingsman.
Okay.
The Kingsman.
The Kingsman.
I keep saying it wrong.
It's okay.
So why don't you go first on this one?
Well, maybe I'm being a little too nice, but I had a pretty good time with it. I think I'll leave this one with a B+.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
I'm certainly lower than you. My grades are between B and B-.
Okay.
I think
B-?
Well, yes. I'm gonna end on a B-, but I'm gonna give it, the old. Here's what they, to get that B, all they had to do was trim a few of the scenes, and maybe bring us into the action a little quicker. The first 15, 20 minutes, like you said, where they were just sort of recreating the first movie.
Yeah.
I think they could have given us the cliff notes of that in about 8 minutes instead of 15.
Well, I think they could have also saved some money with that scene, because with all the other stuff, they could have just had the original scene and just talked around it, as opposed to really filming it with other actors. So I feel like that was probably... it could have saved you some time.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
It was an interesting choice.
All right, look, since we do this with Dan's big movie...
Uh-oh. What do people
let's
think?
look at the Rotten for a second.
I have no idea.
Because I haven't looked at it. My guess would be it's probably...
It could get some hate.
I'm going to say it's probably in the 60s.
64?
Oh, I was going to say 66, so we're right in there. And then I think audience is probably way higher. I'm going to say higher than... I'm going to say 80.
83?
I was going to say 82.
83.
All right, so we're right in that range.
All right.
So let's see what it is.
Okay.
And this is, of course...
Because you're going to have some diehard Matrix
yeah,
haters.
Absolutely. Well, here it's the top story. Matrix Resurrections.
Critics
say it's packed with nostalgia, but exciting in new ways. You would agree with that?
I do.
69% right now.
Interesting.
Now, of course, this is very subject to change because all the reviews are coming in.
Day,
But I bet you the new... Oh, it's only 71 on audience. That's a lot lower than I thought.
About the same.
Okay. So we're higher on the critics than we thought, and a good bit lower on the popcorn than we thought. All right, well, But you know what? We're both sort of. I think you're a little higher on that range, but
Well, you know,
B or B minus, I think fits right in there.
How it often is with me is I try to always go up on a curve because I like to be nice. So I'm also was in between that B and B plus.
Yeah, and especially for something that you have a nice
love
nostalgia for. Yeah.
I admit that. So
and I have
happy
no
to see
real
it.
attachment to them.
And to be honest,
know?
I think one reason I'm comfortable giving it a B plus is because honestly, especially since those other movies weren't so great and it's been a long time, there's no reason this should be good at all. Like this,
I know
this
you're
could have
right.
been a complete disaster.
You're right. Well, I'll be honest. If I was grading it more on the curve of that second and third one were not that good, it is probably more of a B. But I try to grade things just sort of as they are by themselves. But I don't think your B plus is outrageous or anything. I think that sounds about right.
I don't either. I like John Wick in this movie. You know,
he was just Wick. I love Keanu Reeves as a person, but his range is not great.
Here's the thing, though. I think, speaking of which, kind of jumping off the Matrix movies, the John Wick movies, I think are really good, high art kind of action movies, and I liked all the
very stylized,
and I appreciate that. And I liked all the John Wick movies better than this. So
I gave the third Wick movie a B minus as well because they're all kind of the same now. 1 was great. 2 was also very good with a lot of memorable scenes.
Yes.
3 I barely remember at all because it was all the same thing.
Halle Berry, dogs.
Halle Berry was in it.
That's the difference.
I forgot about that.
There you go.
See?
And the dogs. That she sent dogs after people.
So you like all the Wicks better than this?
Probably.
Yeah, I like the first 2 for sure better than this. The third one's about the same. I'll tell you what, I like Bill and Ted Face the Music better than either John Wick 3 or this.
Me too.
So there's that. Talk about good nostalgia.
Yeah.
All right, we'll wrap it there, Joe. Thank you as always for joining. Another great long form new movie review. We love that.
Dan's new movie. They should.
Dan's new movie. Dan's big new movie. All right, we'll see everybody next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.